Right. Welcome everybody. I'm here today with a little bit of loud music out my window. I hope it's not, can you hear it? I hope you can't hear it. I hope it doesn't get louder. It's a lot softer than it was. And Yocheved Godsi, very close friend, colleague. We've been traveling companions, soul companions for several years now.
Who knows how
More than
many lifetimes?
what?
Who knows how many lifetimes?
Who knows how many lifetimes, right? Right. So thank you for being here. We got inspired to come on together because we were hanging out on Shabbat on my porch overlooking the hills of Meron, and where the famous author of the Zohar, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, is buried, and talking about life, and there's so much life going on right now. So I just want to start by saying that I feel kind of nauseated. I don't know what happened. I don't know how that happened. I'm just letting you guys know if I seem a little off. Yeah, I don't know if it's the energy, which I definitely want to talk about what's happening, or maybe I ate too many raisins. That's also a possibility. Anyway,
Appreciate
so
that.
if you're here, you probably already, I mean, everybody in the world knows that supposedly Trump is going to be arrested tonight. I think it's tonight. It'll be tonight in Israel anyway. Does anybody know what time the arrest is scheduled for? But the word is that there's going to be some kind of flip, that it's not like he's being coerced into this. This is all part of a long-term plan, which, as we've heard several times from the famous influencer, 17th letter of the alphabet, it's going to be biblical. It's not an accident. And I would be very surprised if it wasn't part of their planning, actually, because these are all Bible believers, like on a deep level, that it's happening Erev Pesach, like the day before Passover. And apparently Trump's going to be delivering remarks after the arrest, what will be the middle of the night here, like, I said 8:15. He's always about an hour late, so that would be 9:15. What time is that here? 5 in the morning? No, 4 something, like 3:15, 4:15. I'll probably get up for it, like I did for the presidential debates. Anyway, we just have to, in the main thing, like, I'm not going to just keep talking because I have Yochi here with me, and you guys. So feel free to share in the chat if you have any thoughts, insights, questions, whatever, and say hi. So it just feels like I personally have been waiting for the big messianic, the big redemption, like takeoff, like over the cliff, airborne, for now over 30 years. So there have been a lot of events that have come and gone, and a lot of times where I've felt like, oh, this is going to be the year, this is going to be the time, this is going to be it. And in retrospect, I can see, and I'm learning how much it parallels this whole political thing that we've been going through over the last 6 or 7 years, that, the initial thing happens, the initial potential is born into the world, and it's going to happen. But what about the people? The people have to play a part in it. The people have to wake up. The people have to be activated. The people have to, become spiritually expanded. And it seems like
it's all about the people, really.
yeah, it is. It is. It is. It is. Yeah, it's all about the people. Yeah. So you know what? Before I go on talking some more, what are your thoughts and feelings about what's happening? I just will just say this one more thing, that it just feels like, more than any time, it feels like like everything's about to start to cascade, like the big
Well,
take.
yeah. So I definitely want to, say that energetically, I'm feeling a lot of different things. Also, like you're saying, you've been lately feeling a lot of mental exhaustion coming on, and a lot of today, yeah, feeling the nausea. I for one have been feeling a lot of energy also coming up. Whenever there's a huge opportunity, like you said, potential coming through, it feels like this to me. And this also happened like a few days before Purim came on. It was very, very energetically intense, and also on Purim itself. And so what it feels like is like there's a new wave. There's waves that keep coming, and they're very, very powerful. And I'm sure these waves have come in the past, right? And we've been on this trajectory for a long time, and there is a different quality that's happening here right now. And in terms of what's happening on the political front, and with Trump and everything, it for me feels like it doesn't even have to necessarily be a conscious effort on anyone's part to create that scenario. The energy that's happening in the world right now is pushing for that. is pushing for massive transformation, however it's going to unfold. And there's definitely players, that have come back from previous lifetimes to play it out in this
Yeah.
generation.
If you want to say more about that, feel free. Not everybody's here.
So I mean, I'm basing this on different downloads from many different people that you've had on, and from other different healers that I've worked with, and just at large, everyone's in agreement
The Zohar talks about it.
that
Go ahead.
the main characters from the past are all back to play, and to finish it off, so to speak, right?
Or be
Like this
finished
is
off.
the final
Finish it
act.
off or be finished off. Depending.
Or what?
Finish it off or be finished off, depending on the roles that they've been playing in this spiritual war from the beginning of human memory.
On whoever they are, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so there's many different interpretations of who Trump is. Some say Achashverosh, some say Nebuchadnezzar.
I'm going for Esav.
Some say Esav, right? And maybe a combination soul.
Yeah. It's getting more and more confusing about souls anyway. Like, is there more than one about like pieces of soul? Is there more than one piece of each of us in our current lifetime in a different body? You know what? Yeah, it's a little. You can't really pin things down like that exactly. We play so many roles.
Right, and each of us is doing that as well right now. We're all carrying in a lot of different pieces because this is the wrap it up generation.
Yeah.
Right. And so all the final pieces that need to come into play are coming into play right now. And so what it really is like, if we were able to take a step back and see it as the final showdown and trust that it's happening in a perfectly orchestrated, divinely orchestrated way, then everything's perfect, and and you just get on board with that and you flow with it and you trust it, then you're in a whole different reality than the terror that and the chaos that's being thrown in our faces right now.
Right. Suggested for us. Yeah, it's true that there's so many ways in which we're being split, and that's one of them. Like, are you going to go into fear and that high brainwave state where you can't think and process and you're just reacting, or are you going to go deeper and deeper into connection and trust and knowledge? Yeah, Chris says more anxiety in the body. That's one symptom.
Right, because it's so easy when we get triggered in fear to respond in these ways that to think in terms of limitation, and self-protection, and it brings out the worst in people, right? And the whole point of everything that's going on right now, like, this is all to instigate the messianic era. This is all to bring on the geula, right? Everything that's happening right now is all happening in favor of that, right? And so all of it is about us waking up to our true godly selves, and that is waking up into that connection, into that godly self, into being a loving human who recognizes that everything is really okay, and we have everything we need, and we have everything to share, and when we work together, it all works out. And this paradigm of this really the evil versus versus the light is becoming even more contrasted as we get closer.
Totally.
And so it's so much easier to watch here.
Sorry, what? I said, like the prophet Daniel says, it's one of the prophecies of the time that everything good and evil will sort itself out, and the foolish will not understand, but the wise will understand. Like, this is meant to be. This is like the washing machine of souls in a certain way.
Right. And so then what becomes really key in being able to is how to be wise. How can you be wise and not be a fool in this situation? Because there's so much false information, right? On purpose, and this is also predicted for the end of times. There's just everything is just tons of lies are going to come up from every single side, and so because the entire point is it's time to tune in to your internal knowing, and recognize what that truly is. How can you sniff out truth, right?
You finding it easier to sniff out truth? Is it more and more obvious to you?
Yes.
Muscle testing. She does muscle testing like that.
Right. My head, my whole body sometimes moves in that direction. Yes and no. Yes and
really?
no. Yeah. So sometimes, and I feel like it's on purpose, like sometimes it's supposed to get fuzzy because you're supposed to get really simple about it
You think?
and not try and read into it too much, if that
Why
makes
do you
sense.
think that would be? Like, I'm not prone to getting too simple about anything, although I am just from my experience, I want to keep discussing this, and also, I'm looking at the chat. Go there in a minute, but to me, it feels like almost like what happens in the world is becoming more and more like a cartoon. Like, it seems more, although I agree with you, my perspective, just not to argue, but to debate, but I'm very
Yeah,
interested in your perspective. But to me, it's true that I don't know. I'm aware that I don't know what the truth actually is, other than the Torah truth. I don't know what the human truth is. I don't know what the political truth is. I've been surprised. We've all been surprised, like so many times. Like, part of the title of this is "Surprise is Coming." I mean, since in the last 3 years, where haven't we been surprised? And I think the surprises are just going to get bigger. So that's a not knowing and just being simple from where I'm sitting.
yeah,
Just knowing, trusting, all the things you said are so profound. But yet, when it comes to things that are presented like this, this whole arrest thing, I see some people online like, this shouldn't be happening in America, or some people are like, yeah, get him, rule of law, and some people are like, this is terrible, I won't let them harm my president. And to me, it just looks like it's so obvious that it's a setup. It's
right,
just a show.
right.
It's like you don't have to believe that anymore. You can feel it. Or anyway, that's how I'm
Right.
processing.
Oh, I agree with that. I agree with that because it's gotten so bizarre and it's gotten really extreme in so many directions that it's kind of like it's clear that it's a godly play happening. That's what it looks like to me. And because it's like really shocking. Like every single time I hear some new event unfolding in the States, right? I'm like, huh, that's a new one. Like and it's really like what I feel like I'm watching an empire crumble is what it feels like,
Oh,
from over here.
interesting.
And
That's
and
really interesting.
and 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 in a way, and so but I want to say something to that because that's not about generating fear. It's about going through a transformation towards something higher. And so whatever hasn't been working and is not in alignment with our true selves right now needs to fall apart.
Yeah.
And so what it looks like to me is everyone being pitted from like, the right and the left is just about creating some kind of breakdown in order for something new to come out of it. And a lot of what's happening under the scenes that's not necessarily being recognized or spoken about is the amount of community that's being built around this. That people are
Mm,
coming together. It's causing
yeah.
people to connect and to build new infrastructure in smaller, more communal ways,
Very
right?
interesting. I haven't heard anyone talk about that, but it's obviously true. I mean, even here, even on the Telegram group, you guys, if you're not on my Telegram group community, you might want to join. It's t.me.schifferhenry. Yeah, that's so true. And there's groups of people preparing together, buying land together, farming together. We have that here.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like we're being divided into soul branches rather than neighborhoods and ethnic
right,
groups and whatever. It's very
right.
interesting.
Homeschooling together, right? Yeah. And that's really interesting because we've kind of gotten to a place we've moved along into the industrial era so far that we've kind of like lost that connection, and it's been sorely missing, and it's a big part of what we're all yearning for is to have more family and just like humanity in our interactions.
Yeah. I looked at, it's true. I just looked at something, made me smile, from Gib. Um, Gib writes, conspiracy circles use the term problem, reaction, solution to describe how elites shape reality to do what they want. God seems to do that too. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. That's brilliant, actually.
Right, so
And
he's really underlying everything that's happening here.
yeah, God operates through the rulers. I mean, we're all, in a certain sense, it's a big, deep discussion and debate about free choice and divine providence. But there's no question that God runs the rulers, of the kings and rulers, as it says. He runs them around the chessboard like puppets, and they're controlled by their guardian angel by the Tsar, the Malach,
Mhm,
who
mhm, mhm.
actually, from what I heard from the Rebbe, actually responds to when the average person says words of truth. The guardian angel of the rulers of the nation hears the truth and forces that ruler to do what in accordance with the truth spoken by the simple believers. And I think that
Mm,
that's really powerful because we know that our consciousness creates, but that's a direct, like the route up, down.
totally,
Yeah.
totally. Oh, I love that because then it really it shows every individual the power that they have in what they're speaking. Yeah.
And also when we get together as those groups that you're talking about, when we share ideas, when we support each other, like if not for the so interesting because I've heard, I'm sure everybody's heard that the internet was offered to the world in order to provide more of an opportunity for the hive mind, the Borg, the control. But it boomeranged because every person now is a center and everybody can share information, though they've tried to stop it. Nevertheless, we're sharing, and we're able to start to align together, like you
Hmm,
said,
hmm.
and provide a counterforce, shining light into the world, our own solutions, our own insights.
Yes.
And also, it's beautiful how people care. Like when it comes to the average regular person who's maybe more awake than their neighbors, it doesn't seem like people are wishing bad on those who aren't there yet. It's like, let us, when you get here, we want to help you. Don't be shocked. It's okay. It's going to be okay. And I think
Right.
that's, when we learned that the third temple which will be the house of prayer for all people, the portal between heaven and earth, is going to be rebuilt through unconditional love. I'm riffing on what you said because it's so brilliant what you said about the communities. It's
Right.
amazing what is already created and what we can consciously continue to create once we understand we're connected with the divine process here. We can actually take
Exactly.
more leadership.
Exactly. When we shift our perspective to see it as that this is the divine process unfolding. And if you align with it, you get on board. And it truly is the expression of your actual highest potential. So it will bring you great joy to be involved in that way, to be serving, to be giving, to be loving, to be connecting, to be creatively coming up with solutions to the new problems that are coming up, right, in your own way. Everybody has a role in this right now.
Say more about that, how everybody has a role. Like I say that all the time, but how do you see that exactly?
Okay, so we are a single unit. We are a single unit, which means that every single, you can't walk around without your legs, right? You need your legs to walk around, right? You need your lips to be able to formulate words, right? So we're a single unit. We need every single person, whatever they're doing, to be a part of that. Every single person's consciousness to be a part of that, because it's all driving the single force of our awareness and our consciousness forward. Every single person's consciousness that they're thinking through, that they're analyzing, that they're letting go of, whatever's happening for them is feeding back into this whole reality that we're generating together, right? And we're all moving on the same trajectory and aiming towards the same goal of total liberation, right? Of living in a reality where things are just good, where we take care of each other, where we look out for one another, right? Where we can be at peace and trust that other people are going to be doing the right thing in our
Yeah, not to
environment.
mention no war, no starvation, no hunger, no sickness, no death.
Yeah, where
That's
there's
good too.
limited resources, right?
Yeah,
Because we have the capacity for that.
yeah.
We have the capacity for that. And when we step into that space, when everyone's doing their part in that direction, rather than, let's say, trying to hoard and survive and living in this mentality of like, I just got to make it to the next moment, right? And you know what like, okay, this is a very extreme example, but it makes me think of people in the Holocaust who had a potato for the day to eat, and they shared it with somebody else, let's say, who didn't have. Now that's that's what gave them life, not the few bites of the potato skin that they gave away wasn't going to nourish them. It was the fact that they were giving to somebody else that gave them purpose, that activated their divine self and enlightened them and gave them a reason to live, right? That
Wow.
that's what it is. And so when we get into these really intense places, and God forbid we should not know those places, right? But when we're faced with any kind of experience of lack and fear, it's really important to tune into that is a false reality. that you might be seeing it, it might be clear as day in front of you. That is a false reality. And there's an infinite reality that you can tune into and you can give your last potato over. And that will give you nourishment, right? And somehow, because that's, we're in Nissan right now. This is the month of miracles,
Oh,
right?
yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so we're meant to activate miracles. So like everybody doing their part. So moving back into this place of everybody doing their part to get to that place is everybody activating their miraculous divine self, recognizing that we're not living in this little box that we've been seeing for a long time, right? We are infinite beings. We are truly capable of so much more than we've even fathomed until now. Right. And so that's what this month is about. This month is about recognizing our greatness and stepping into it. That means whatever you think is holding you back, take a step past that. Dream so much bigger and take a step in that direction, because that is what you were created to do. Like that's, what getting out of Egypt, what redemption is all about, what this messianic era that we're entering is all about, is finally getting to that place, right? And so like we've done all the work, we've worked so hard. Look at the amount of information that's flooding the world right now.
Yeah.
It's at our fingertips, right? You could be anything you want to be, and it really is true if you could believe it. If you could
If you can
believe it.
believe it, right, and take action in accordance with that. Yeah, it does start with
Exactly.
belief.
If you activate your desire, if you activate your rut zone, you can go there. And so that's what's incumbent upon that's the responsibility that every individual has right now to play their part, is become great. You are great. Become your great self. Right. So, and that means like, stop thinking small. Don't be petty in any kind of a way. Don't be petty. It doesn't suit you. It's like we're shedding an old identity right now. And it's terrifying, actually. This is like the final step, like why the 80% didn't make it out of Egypt.
Yeah, we're not replicating that.
We're not doing that again, right? So like this is the generation that says like, yeah, I'm ready to cross, right? But you have to believe in yourself to do it.
It's almost like, it's not almost like, it's exactly like all of the events of the past few years have had the effect, I'm sure they've been designed to uproot the mental rut that makes it so hard for us to believe in what we can't see, and so hard for us to believe that the past isn't endlessly going to replicate itself into the future. Now, every single human being realizes that we're in uncharted territory. That never happened. I mean, perhaps that happened at the giving of the Torah, the creation of the world, but other than that, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Right. That's an excellent point. And it really shakes you out of that rote reality.
And what happens when we're shaken out of the rote reality? We start to sense something deeper. We start to ask questions. We start to realize, it's interesting, going back to what we were discussing briefly in the beginning, whether things are easier. It's easier to see through things, or harder. It's impossible. Like, it's more, every day I believe in less and less in terms of what I see around me. Right. I know less and less, which I think is a good thing. I think that's, that opens up the not knowing, as Kabbalah calls Chachma, opens up the desire to know, the open mind and heart, the searching, the connecting to God, the seeing deeper. So on the one hand, that's happening. On the other hand, everything that we used to know is and everything that used to be thrown at us. And I think back to a few years ago, how the news was, how easy it was to brainwash everybody. Yeah. How they got societies to do and think such crazy things. Yeah. The whole political correctness, it's more than a few years, but it's remarkable to think, and some people are still there, but it's breaking down. People are starting to see through it, and it's going to break down completely. Like, how did we get there? How did we get there? How did we get so brainwashed, so, I don't know, complacent, so I guess pollution, I guess money problem, I don't know. It's a very cleverly done plot.
I mean, I would say that whatever it is, it's always feeding into the unconscious parts of self that don't want to have to be responsible to take the action. That somehow that wants to stay back in that place.
Wow.
Because it's somehow being served by it.
So there's a part of us that's served by being a robot, you're basically saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, sure.
Say more about that.
You know, it almost feels it almost feels like energetically, like coming out of the dark, like a vampire coming out of the dark, kind of like, so much light. And it's like shocking to the system, the amount of energy that we really are.
Yes.
The amount of motion that we're really meant to be in, right? Like we are high capacity processors and creators. And we are functioning like at this kind of a level. And so to wake it up is like to wake up all these sleeping parts of self to finally come into action, right? It's kind of like, ooh, ah, like, it's been, now I'm thinking of the genie in the bottle, 2000 years can give you such a crick in the neck. So there's parts of us that are just like, they're feeling like they haven't been in motion for so long. And there's become this like heavy kind of like gravitational pull against it.
I wonder if that's part of the reason why so many of us are so tired, or if it's more because so much energy is processing things. Old things are processing out, new things are processing in. Do you think about that? You must think about that.
There's a ton processing unconsciously all the time, 100%. Yeah, yeah, because we're all in this together, and there is an awakening that's going on. So there's constantly new information that's coming into our systems.
When you say so much motion, that we're capable of so much motion, what are you talking about? Are you talking about intentional alignment with God to create the world that we're looking for? Is that basically what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Our actual divine power?
there's like an accelerated repair that I'm seeing.
Accelerated repair?
Yeah,
What is that?
of disease, of
Mm,
systems that are not functioning. There's a lot of work that needs to happen, right? But if we focus in, and I'm speaking in very broad terms right now, right? If we focus in on what the essentials are of it, and we get the value system straight, it can form very easily. It's
healing
really
of any,
about being
healing on
simple.
any, about being simple?
Yes,
That's the
because
second time you're saying that.
yeah, okay, so I want to say more about that because, like we said before, some things are clear, some things are not. It's about not trying to over intellectualize anything, because we're working, like you said, we're going to a higher consciousness, right? So we're going to a different level than we've been functioning at till now,
Right.
right? It's a higher level intelligence. So if we're trying to figure it out from here, from that mental capacity that we've been working with until now, we're cutting
No,
ourselves
not big
short.
enough. Right. It can't handle it. System
Mhm.
overload.
Right. And I think that's a big part of the mental exhaustion that we've been tuning into, is you cannot approach it from that place.
So on a practical grounded level, if you woke up feeling exhausted and you want to keep moving forward in your own process, what would you do?
It's about not resisting so much, right? So then I wouldn't berate myself or beat myself up or try and push myself too hard. But I would definitely do what I needed to do. And as go with the flow, chill way as possible. And if I need to lie
Meaning,
down, and if that's possible, I'll take a few minutes and I'll do that, and I'll do some kind of deep relaxation exercise, right?
I
The,
just did
but
that
the whole
before this call. I
right,
thought I wasn't going to be able to get on and speak. I felt so off.
right,
Yeah. Yeah.
right, totally, totally, yeah. And I've been feeling a rush of like nervous energy that's been coming in today, which is how huge amounts of energy like get tuned into my system.
Oh,
The-
also, it's
yeah.
also the world. I don't remember if we ever talked about this, but I remember reading Heart Math Institute measures the electromagnetic. I don't think they're the ones who put these sensors up, but they're sensors in various places that measure the electromagnetic frequency of the Earth. And Heart Math found that when a lot of human beings at the same time had a high emotion, like I remember the examples, I remember 9/11
Mhm,
and the death of Princess Diana, that
mhm,
they measured significant spikes in the Earth's electromagnetic energy, which then that field, we're highly influenced by that field. Our moods, our health, it interacts with us. Any electromagnetic field, like we know, radiation can mess your field up. It's a
yeah.
harmonic field and up. I don't even know how it works actually. there's no point in my saying more about it, but it just really shows you that when people are, how much of the world, I wonder what percentage of the world that's actually not sleeping right now, I mean, literally sleeping, is focused on, is aware that that something unexpected might happen in a few hours that might change, and what's that doing to
Yeah.
all of us? What
Yes.
is that energy?
Yeah, and they also notice like when big sun flares come out, how that changes us, how
Yeah,
we have physical reactions to that. And they've also done studies that notice how our heart responds prior to information hitting our minds, our conscious minds. Our heart
yeah.
responds before that. So we are picking up on information from other places before we're consciously aware of it.
Our bodies, anyway, I've been really seeing lately that the body's not solid at all, but what it is I mean, we know that, but I've been feeling it and
Yeah.
super aware of it. And what our body's doing, it's like a holograph. It's picking up, it's sensing. So it's sensing, the ambient temperature. It's sensing what's going on inside in the cells and the immune system, but it's also sensing emotions. From inside, it's sensing emotions from outside, and it's sensing these energies and then trying to respond. And that's probably a lot of what we're feeling, like things trying to adjust really fast and not
Yes.
quite keeping up.
Yes. We know our bodies are made of the earth, right? God made us from the earth. He blew a soul into us.
It's also quantum energy.
And yeah, and that earth has been, evolved for millions of years and this intelligence has come through us and is inside our beings. And so we're made of the same stuff as the rest of the universe. So we're communicating, our particles are communicating together with whatever's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, just to save myself any comments, if anybody, it's the Rebbe's philosophy and many others that the world was actually created in 6 + 1, 7 human days, but that it was created, as the Rebbe wrote, it was created with the past. Like the past it was created with, I don't know if it's millions or billions, but that all that intelligence that, like when you open a novel, Jessica's sitting with Dan reading the newspaper. We don't know her backstory and her parents. Things start where they start, but they have a past. Everything was created with the past. Just felt like I should say that. I also want to give a shout out to Shoshana Silkov, who I see her leaving some interesting comments. Shoshana and I lived across the street from each other back in the day in Brooklyn, and I remember being in her house when she was calling talk shows to inform them that redemption is in process and about to come. Yeah, it's been a long road, but on the other hand, it's been kind of a short road if you think about it in terms of millions of years or even 30 years or whatever. We don't see the macro. I think that's part of what you're saying, Yochi, right? We see that
Yeah.
we're nearsighted, we're hyper focused on every single thing that happens without seeing the bigger picture. It's part of the story of Purim that the events took place over several years, and it's only in retrospect from that 40,000-foot view that you can see this is all totally planned and orchestrated, and everyone played their role. And it's very powerful. The more we can actually be with that, and part of us is already with that, but the external, the external part is not yet fully calibrated. I wonder even if some aspect of our bodies already in a new frequency, but other parts aren't, or our minds aren't. I don't know. Yochi's
Well,
she's
check
checking,
in
she's
on that.
checking it energetically.
Yeah.
That's fun. What are you getting?
What percentage of us physically is already in alignment with that?
Yeah, whatever. Or if there's like a disconsonance between different parts of our body because some is already moving into the future and some is still hanging back, or maybe it's not our body.
Our body, our collective body, yeah?
Either way.
Okay, so as our collective body, what percentage is already moved in? I'm getting around like 12% has
Moved into
already
the world
moved
of
in.
the future.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not
What do you
bad.
get? What do you get on that?
I didn't check. I don't know. I'm not going to do that right now. I don't know. I have no idea. I'd have to get very, very, very quiet and pray. And then I don't know. But it does feel like it does feel that there's a flow, like I don't know. The way I'm feeling it is like there's almost like a bright flowing river inside of the molecules that's happily flowing, sparkling and bubbling toward that future. And then there's the rest, which is like, what, you know, in all different kinds of states, like, what the heck is happening here? And then there's like, what am I going to do? I don't know what's going to happen. How do I prepare? And then what about the other people? Like, it's all together, which, yeah, no wonder some of us feel nauseated. It makes sense, actually.
Right, right. Because there's a lot of shifting happening at once. And this idea of not thinking about it too much, right? Because when there's something that's happening, you don't, it's like the idea of like, as the caterpillar is forming into the butterfly, you don't want to get involved and cut open the cocoon and like check it out, right? You
Yeah.
want to let it do its thing. And so a big part of what's happening right now is we want to not try to get too involved in trying to make it happen, or like make it happen a certain way. You just kind of like, it's happening, right? Just allow yourself to be in the flow with it, if that means something to you.
Yeah. I mean, I know that I started out in 2000. I mean, I watched the presidential debates in 2016 for some reason. I was in Israel. And I wasn't even tuned in. I really had no clue what was going on, but something made me get up at 4 a.m. and listen. I don't know why. I have no idea why. And then, I loosely followed. And then in October 2017, when, 17 started to post, that got my interest a lot. And there were times, I mean, I think we must have talked about this in the past, like there was a period of time where I was up every night till 2:30, just waiting for something to happen, listening to the next thing, listening to the next YouTube, and then getting up at 10, 11. And that went on for a while. And then when we went to the US, and we went to Hippocrates Health Institute for a month, just to get a reboot. The first time I turned on something after I'd had like my sprout juice, a good night's sleep, I felt the anxiety in my body, which I wasn't sensitive to before. So that's also like when you're describing the caterpillar, I'm thinking of, what is the caterpillar doing then? If it's melting down, it shouldn't be afraid. It just needs to go with it. Maybe it's resting, maybe it's letting go. In our case, maybe that's like watching our triggers and sending them love.
Yeah.
I don't know what you have to say about that, but
Yeah.
we're human beings and we do want to know what's going on, and we do want to play an active, conscious role. As conscious
Right.
beings, we do have we're not, even though it's a good model, we're not actually
Right.
caterpillar.
Well, very often the response to fear is, like you said, we get like very worked up, and we think we can control all these things, and we decide how things are supposed to go. And so that's like allowing ourselves to get emotionally drained and pulled into these negative places. That's what we want to avoid. It feels productive to us in a certain sense because we're trying to figure it out and
It
like
used to more, right. It used to more when there was more censorship, but now that most anybody who wants to knows that we've been had big time, I don't feel like I have to go telling people anything anymore. Whoever
no.
wants to know knows.
So what it's coming down to really is, don't allow yourself to get pulled into any kind of matrix of thought. Really just like allow yourself to come into the basics. Just the basics of simple living, and continuing to keep this internal focus that there's a godly plan unfolding here. So be godly, right? Be good to other people. Be kind to yourself and your own thinking, right? Stay positive. Stay in simple faith with it, right? And just like do the basics that you need to do. Don't overspend in places you don't need to. Focus on the things that you really need to be buying, right? Just like be really simple in your approach to how you're doing this, but don't allow fear to become a part of it. You're just doing what you need to be doing.
Are you not, yeah, first of all, yes, it does seem like having 2 to 4 weeks of food of your choice in case, it's harder to get things that you want. I'm sure everybody will be fine. I'm pretty sure.
Yes,
But that's a good idea. But do you not I'm not scared. Somebody said, Bookmouse said, I'm always positive. I'm not always positive, but I'm more and more positive. I used to hate positive thinking because it seemed like useless. Like, what's it about? Positive is slightly better than negative, but that's not what we're here for. We're here to know the truth. We're here to make a difference. We're here to make it happen. But
right.
It just feels like the more I have like worked with triggers, and I know you do this kind of work like professionally also, and released fears and whatever, and started to see through all of this. And also things are coming. It's so obvious if you're looking that the tide has turned a while back now. Wherever the boat was going, toward the waterfall, it's not going there anymore, not for us. And
Yeah.
that's really, really, really obvious, which that coupled with the fact that I've been on redemption watch for like 30 plus years,
Yeah.
like what's not to be positive about? And the more, and here's another thing. I don't know if you do this, but I'm spending a lot of focus asking God to actually release any fear energy that's still in my body, even if I'm not feeling fear per se. But we all have those traumas from this life, past lives, everything that's happened to us. And that's where it's like Velcro. I think we talked about this once. Anything that has a resonance of fear can trigger that inside the system and then take us out of our own consciousness. I don't want that. And I do believe that the more we release of these things, the more that pure flow of our bigger self is just going to come through automatically in that restful way.
Right. Okay. So there's been so much work done, and there's so many different modalities right now in healing that have to do with working on releasing fear. And so, just in a very quick note around that, you know, we think we have to delve into it and try and analyze and understand it and get to the source, and to a certain degree we want to get clarity on where it's coming from and whatnot. But we spend too much time identifying with it as we're doing that. And therefore, like we said, it's like you don't want to stay at the same level of analyzing and mentally trying to work with something. You want to go to a higher place with it, right?
Mm.
So what we want to do at this point, because we've done so much of this mental processing already as humanity until now, we get what these things are. But now we want to move on from that into a new reality. Now, so instead of like working through the fear, we want to now recognize that we're okay. We want to shed the fear and step into a confident identity that's confident that we deserve, not because we did anything to deserve, just because we deserve as we are, because God created us and loves us and wants us to deserve. So we just deserve to succeed, to
Yeah.
thrive, to be happy, to have what we, all, not just all our needs met, but to really enjoy life, right? And get all the things that we really desire.
Right.
That's really what's up. Right. So what's left is for us to receive that. And the only way you can receive it is if you start to identify with yourself that way. So all this like working on fear, what you want to do is you want to allow it to come up, and then you want to just say goodbye to it as fast as you possibly can.
Yeah,
Rather
you
than
can
like,
feel it actually going out. You can feel it if you say yes to that.
you could feel it moving. You could feel the energy literally shifting and rising out of you. Yeah. And then you could feel a new sense of something, of peace, of just wholeness coming in, right? And as you continue to shift out these parts of self that are no longer, that are just not you, and not part of this new identity that you're forming. And then in response to what you said about not wanting to be positive, because there is this sense around it that like it's kind of foolish, like don't get your hopes up, right? You're just gonna get disappointed.
I don't mean
And
not be positive like that. I mean positive thinking per se is it's just a shell over reality. It's better to be
okay.
positive than negative, but yeah, I don't like it when people just say, "Oh, just think good." I mean, thinking good on the deepest level that comes from trust, bitachon, that's cosmic, but just thinking good. I'm not going to face that. I'm not going to think about that because I'm going to be positive. I don't think that's where we're at. I think if that's what God wanted it from us,
Mhm.
everything would be nice and green and verdant. Somebody would
You
be
know,
feeding us breakfast.
yeah, the translation of the word simcha, right, of happiness in Hebrew is not like walking around like ecstatically jumping up and down all the time, right? That's not, it's really the idea of it is being whole with your reality. That everything that's coming in, you're not rejecting it and resisting it. You're able to be aligned with it and one with it, right? And there's a certain satisfaction in your life with what's happening. And within that you have rises and falls. But
Yeah.
overall you're able to stay connected to what your reality is and embrace it. And so, so it's interesting that you're bringing this up though about the effect of positive thinking, because I'm translating this book by Yoel, right?
What's
Called
yeah,
the bridge,
the bridge.
right? And the entire
Okay,
thing is
hang on. Yocheved is a French artist and mystic who lives a few blocks that way. Um, and yeah, he calls himself a mirror polisher. He's very, very, very interesting person. Anyway, go ahead. I just wanted to say.
thank you. So
Definitely
he wrote
impacted my
this
life.
book in Hebrew, and I'm translating it into English, please God. And so it's really all about the influence and the impact of positive thinking on your own reality and how that can shift you.
Hmm.
And
So is that different from what I said, or does that disagreeing with what? How
so
do you
it's
see it?
what it's saying basically is that when you start to focus on the positive, because the Baal Shem Tov says that you are wherever your thoughts are. Like
Right.
wherever you're mentally holding, that's the reality you're generating around you. That's where you're located. And that's the premise of the book.
So I agree with that, but I don't, and I'm sure that Yoel Torgman doesn't mean it in a shallow way at all. What I object to is the shallow. That how I see it is if there's a challenge, I think we have, like you say, our powers are so much greater than we possibly could know, especially through connecting with God and a positive intention, the potential for miracles, which is so rich and so present. So I think that when we encompass what's happening and kind of go under it, connect to God under it and through it, and see the other side, that's a positive co-creation. I think that's different from positive thinking, which is just like, oh, it's all good. I saw this so much when I used to do interviews in the New Age community. Everybody was like, don't think about that. No, it's all good. It's all light. It's all light. No, it's not all light. I mean,
Right, which is
ultimately, it's all light.
the rejection of reality,
Right.
really. Yeah,
Right. Right.
right.
Exactly.
Okay, so I get what you're saying right now. Is you're saying on a deeper level, we're not just saying everything's good and sweet. We're saying come into a place where you're really able to recognize the truth that's underlying all of it and connect it to its source.
Yes.
And
Then
yeah.
it comes out in a positive form. Yes,
Mhm,
it's transformation, co-creation, very different from that denial of reality um that I think that has been promoted a lot. But I think I can understand in a way why it's been promoted, because we didn't have these powers always. But
right.
more and more is coming online now. I want to say something. There's so many interesting comments in the chat.
Can I just say one thing to that?
Yeah, please.
So it's good because what we're saying, like I'm just summarizing what we're saying, it's good because God says it's good, and we're getting into the place of being able to recognize that.
To recognize it and bring out its revealed goodness.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Yeah.
I have this bunch of words coming to my mind: peculiarity, glitch, bias. You get it. I'm not going to say it's all good. We'll understand someday. No, I'm not born for that. I'm here to say, because I believe this in the core of my being and I see it on a daily basis, that we have the power to influence physical reality. I mean, the Tanya says this too. I'm not making this up. The Rebbe says it, all kinds of sources say it, but to influence the way that physical reality comes out in the physical through our starting by accepting that it's all God and that God is good. And then we change the vessels, whether through which it shows up. So the
Yeah.
vessels are shining light rather than shining in constriction. I don't know
Right.
if I'm being clear, but this co-creation thing, it's very, very real. And it's very
Right.
important. It's imperative. It's like in times like this, even though I think it's about to get much lighter for us, I think it might get heavier for people that have had their heads in the sand. Have to be there to help them. But it's we want to see the underlying light, but then to actually do what we can, our part to reveal it, because in this world, it's about what's revealed. This physical world is about what is revealed, not about what the
Yeah.
inner spiritual intention is, etc. And this is the target. If it's got to come here or it doesn't count.
Right. So what we were saying before in terms of everyone playing their role right now and their own responsibility, everybody has a piece of whatever they're working through, whatever they're carrying, whatever struggle they're experiencing is the point that they're transforming to reveal the light through.
Yes. Yes. And to know that yeah, I also really feel that, and we've talked about this before a lot, really, but that it's time to change our relationship with God if it still needs changing. I know mine has needed a lot of changing, to like kind of throw the intention over the fence and then do whatever possible to align with it, that God only wants to give me revealed good, like you said. That was not the case in the past. Maybe God wanted that, but that wasn't part of the plan. Now it is. That's one of the, if not the, without a doubt, it's the biggest shift between exile and redemption, that we have the opportunity of having an unconditionally deep, loving relationship with God. That's what the Rebbe is talking about when he, in his discourse, his Sichan Bitachon, on trust, that even though, there's this, in faith tells you, Emunah in Hebrew tells you that there's a system of reward and punishment, and that sometimes there are lessons that need to be learned. And even though it's all good, sometimes it has to come out not good. The Rebbe says specifically, and it's based on other sources also, that when we, despite all that, if we move so close into our trust and closeness with God on that unconditional level, then everything comes out in revealed good, regardless of whether we deserve it or not, regardless of whether, we'll find another way to get that is the core growth. The core growth is seen through the walls here, not in a way that it's anarchy, not in the way that is hedonistic, in the way that we see and feel that oneness, and it resonates within our beings, and we want to be part of it, and it wants to be part of us. Like we don't have to be in a universe where, to be spiritual, you can't have physical, or to have physical, you can't be spiritual, or to love yourself and have for yourself, you can't love others and have. It's a world which is a win-win-win, and that's, I think, the core of what we're moving into, and I think that's the core. Malchut. So you always say that. What do you mean by that? Malchut being sovereignty. How is it about Malchut?
Because it's about, when you say partners with God, right? In order to be a partner with God, you have to be, a so-called equal, because partners are not subservient
to
one another, right? It's a partnership. It's an equal exchange that's going on. So this whole setup of how God created this reality was in order for us to create an independent self, so that he could have a partner to experience a relationship with. Meaning he wants us to have an opinion. He wants us to do things our own way, right? But he's giving us the layout of how we can do that. That's what the Torah is.
How we can do it in a sustainable way that doesn't destroy but builds,
But builds, so that you could create yourself into an independent being, so that you can become that sovereign self, right? And that sovereign self, it's kings and queens. We're all meant to be royalty. We're all meant to have everything, right? Everything at our disposal, unlimited everything. That's the reality of the trajectory that we're moving towards. We're going through this limited time, space, experience, and bodies, right? In order to be able to create something of ourselves, in order to create a self, essentially. To then have what it is that godliness is, because God wanted to share God. Right. And so, that's the purpose of us. That's what we're becoming, right? Godly beings, little godlings, right? And so we're meant to wake up to that. And so you can't do that if you're feeling like a victim.
Yeah, you can't.
You can't do that if you're feeling oppressed. You can't do that if you feel like, confused and like you don't know what's going on. You have to step into a place where you just feel in yourself, and you check in and you get connected to your deep knowing, right? And you feel that you are here and you are okay and you are being supported by God, and you're on a mission that counts, and don't pressure yourself to try and go beyond what your like real constraints are, but move forward. Take a step outside of your usual bounds, right? Go past your place that you've gotten yourself into. We all what's this, what are the studies say, that by the time we're 35, 40, we don't have new thoughts anymore because we've gotten
I don't think it's when we're 30. I think it's way before that. Although I've been having quite a few new thoughts.
Well, because you're working on that.
Yeah, hard. Yeah. I remember when we were in class in Jerusalem, we learned together for 3.5 years with some other women. It was amazing. So one of them, do you remember when she said, I just am praying for a new thought? And I'm like, what would a new thought be like?
What would a new thought be like?
What could I think of that I haven't thought of already? And now it's like new thoughts, like, flowing in whenever I stop and go and turn inside. And it's there is obviously connection with our deeper selves.
And that's kind of what's so exciting when there is big change happening in the world. Because yeah, on one hand, it's scary because we don't know what's coming. On the other hand, it's new. We've all gotten a little jaded, like, been there, done that.
Right. Another life. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
No, this is the last one. So yeah, Gib, yeah, Lindsay Sterling. Do you know Lindsay Sterling? Somebody wants to marry Lindsay Sterling. I don't know if she's married or not, but she sure is amazing at the violin. My daughter used to play her music so all over the house. Very beautiful. How do you go beyond? Maybe we'll talk about that a bit before we leave, but I want to scroll up. I'm just looking at the chat, and there's so many interesting things. Yes, I saw those pictures where Obama and Pharaoh Akhenaten were. Although they do have a similar genetic structure in their face, there's no question about it. So whether that's showing us the role or not, the Zohar does say that all the big characters, all the big players that persecuted us throughout history are going to come back in this time to be part of the big takedown. I'm doing a little poll on my Telegram. There are 5 options. So far, only 2 people had voted when I looked before, but they both voted that tonight is starting the big takedown. So I hope so. And if it's not tonight, it's going to be soon. Yeah. Yeah, I also agree, Tom, that Mr. T doesn't do what he doesn't want to do, which is one of the things that I think so many of us just love about him. That's real sovereignty. It's like, you're not pushing me around. Sorry. I don't give up. Sorry. I mean, that's an illustration of Malchut, of this sovereignty, that we all have big figures who are on the side of goodness, even if they're not angels. Big figures. Malchus shows us something about our own Malchus, always. And it's appealing to those who are ready to move into that, and probably a big turnoff for those who are still in that mass, what it's called, mass formation, like Shoshana mentioned, psychosis. Yeah. Okay. The thing that I don't know if I have mixed feelings about bringing this up, but a few people have talked about the role of the rabbis in, I want to be like other YouTubers and not say words, but the thing, so many people's channels have gotten taken down, although that may be stopping too. Anyway, it is disconcerting that there was so little. I don't care what people's, I mean, there've always been these medical biases. I've always been shocked by how many people are just blindly believing what the pharmaceutical companies tell them, and, putting all kinds of stuff in their kids from when they're tiny infants. I got over that. I was biased against it, but I really got over it when my oldest daughter was 2, and went into the community doctor, and got a DPT or something, and her little arm swelled up like this. And I took her back to the doctor, and he had no idea what it was. He's like, "Oh, I've never seen this before." I'm like, "Okay, I'm on my own. I'm not doing this anymore." But people are mentioning, there's a little debate here. I don't know if you're following the chat, but there's a little debate about the rabbis of the times. I mean, the Gemara does talk about this as one of the signs of the Geula, of Mashiach, of the redemption, that the rabbis, the faces of the generation, it says the faces of the generation, which are leaders, whether you call them political or spiritual leaders, probably both, have faces like the faces of dogs, and different interpretations on that. It's turned a lot of people off of rabbis, of even maybe of Torah, that is not good. So I don't know if you want to say anything about it.
Okay, so firstly, it's like, it's a little heartbreaking and sad when you hear things like that. And on the other hand, it's to me a part of the breakdown of a certain type of hierarchy that we're moving out of, because we're this trajectory in a very, I'm just going to like summarize very quickly that there's a Kabbalistic understanding of this movement that we're going towards, and it's really encapsulated in what's considered like one moon cycle of these 6,000 years that are relative to the 6 days of creation. That as we move through these 6,000 years of creation, that we're arriving back again on the 6th day of creation at the end of the 6,000 years, that we're in the Erev Shabbat stage, and that's like what once again
Sabbath
coming back
Eve,
to the garden,
right?
right? And back pre-garden era, and back in the space where we're no longer struggling with the same things we've been struggling with, and that's a moon cycle. And the moon is representative of the feminine energy, and the masculine is represented by the sun. And the sun is always shining and constant, and it's this waxing and waning of the moon that shows us the trajectory of humankind as we move towards this higher consciousness. So the moon in its diminished state was this lower consciousness that we've been moving out of, and as we come to this higher place, it's the full moon shining in its full stature, right? And so it's the feminine rising is what it is. And as we get towards that, right, it's more of a circular consciousness as opposed to the hierarchical. And definitely we're feeling reverberations of this coming out in many different interpretations around the world, right? And not necessarily in the expression that they were meant to have, because a lot of things get lost in translation, but it's coming from essentially a holy place that's unfolding. It's the energy of the universe that's unfolding currently, and where this strive for equality, where you're no longer going to somebody above you, but you're really now consulting as equals, and we're sharing information as equals. And so
Side by side leadership.
yeah, it's a different kind. Exactly. The leadership structure is shifting. And so therefore there's going to be a breakdown, and also truth is coming out. So people, there's people in all positions in every area of the world who are not the real deal. And so false representatives, right? And so the truth is coming out. So that's going to come out in all the areas. Yeah.
So you're saying that we're seeing leadership for what it is. It is very sad in a way, and I guess in another way, it's all going to come out in the soul wash cycle. This, like, we have to go through this. We see also, for those of you who are tuned into the Jewish, the Torah culture over the last generations, we've seen a loss of in every generation. There have been huge leaders, great tzaddikim, central souls. The Rebbe is like the last one of those, and many of us believe, as I do, that he's still maintaining that position, even if not in this dimension per se, in a physical body. But the removal of leaders, and the Rebbe himself spoke about this, that in regard to the sun and the moon, that the sun and the moon are made of one essence. They originally created two great luminaries, which means shining objects, not with one as a reflector and the other as a shiner, but both shining. And the moon, supposedly, the Midrash says, complained, whatever that means, and said you can't have two rulers in the same sky, which I'm assuming means that you can't have an ego with all the full power of God. And so God said the moon has to go down. You'll go down, you'll be smaller,
Or
you'll go down.
relationship, if you're both playing the same exact role.
Also true. Interesting. Yep. Which also, yeah. I don't want to go down this because this could be a really deep discussion, maybe for Shabbat, about giving a giver and receiver. And is God made of one? God is one, but obviously, and you can't say he's made of more than one, but in retrospect, and I get this directly from Hasidus, that in retrospect, when you look back, if you see more than one, that more than one was already in there, even though it's one from the top down, but it's more than one from the bottom up. And what is that relationship? I don't know. Really interesting what's going on here.
Well, that's the whole point of creation, is it creates that perspective.
That creates the perspective of more than one?
Of more than one.
I'm not quite catching you.
In the creative reality, when you look from our perspective back up to the oneness, then you can see from our place that there's disparate parts, right? But from the godly perspective looking down, there isn't such a thing. There's just unity.
From looking down, but you see, I think that the godly perspective is also looking up. It's not like God's perspective isn't everywhere. It's just taking different forms. Like what about with something about you?
But that's what I mean by that. It's the Shekhinah, like it's the feminine, it's the creative element that's
that gets to be the giver and the receiver.
Yeah.
And even the fact that our actions make a difference and bring out something that wouldn't be brought out without us, that makes us the giver. None of this is being manufactured by my brain or your brain. This is, I mean, obviously we're thinking about it, but this is
because it says that after the woman regains her stature, then she becomes the crown to her husband, right? So then she's because the evolution and the development that she's gained through her evolution brings her to a higher place than he has been at all along.
Right. So yeah, and then she's the
influencer.
Well, somehow it's going to work out in a much more
Except that
I don't
we're in
even
the
want to go there
circular
because
reality.
this is for a
But now we're in
class.
the circular reality and we're all the influencers.
Yeah, let's do this when we get into class next time. Let's try to meditate on this. It's going to take us away from. I'll close my eyes and I'll put my head down. I'll hold my head for a long time. Now, see, yeah. So that idea, I was just thinking about this though. This idea of everybody being in the circle idea. It's so real. You guys think about it because what I'm seeing now is that people who are conscious, who maybe are into healing or maybe into prayer, or have different intuitions, different insights, and often because the medical system has shown itself to be so problematic in many cases, people are leaning more. It's not the only reason, but people are leaning more and more into self-empowerment and natural healing and energy healing and so forth. So I see that people. What I was just thinking about this morning, that because I heard somebody say on in a YouTube that we won't be learning mostly from teachers anymore, and Maimonides says that eventually we won't have to learn from teachers. Nobody will have to learn from anybody because everybody will connect to God themselves. But we will learn from each other. That's what happens now. Like I'll run something by you, and you'll think about it and do that, and then
Yeah.
you'll or vice versa, and that adds another piece to the puzzle, and then that will catalyze me to have a different thought, and I'll share that with my students, and then they'll show me things that I didn't know, and that's that's part of the actually structural way that we move. It's one of the prophecies of redemption, from competition to collaboration. Instead of seeing someone else's brilliance as diminishing me, I get to take it and now run with it, and everybody gets enhanced continuously, which is very different from the hierarchical system where there's one person or a few people on top and they have to be the best or they lose their position. It's not like that. It's a really different way of being.
Yes,
Anyway.
exactly. And this whole idea, like you said, of how the medical approach is shifting, again, is coming back to this place of personal empowerment.
Yeah.
And so it's all
Not
part of,
and not all blindly listening to authority. Even when
right.
Mr. T, I just heard the video again, this, I think it was his inauguration speech, or correct me if I'm wrong, friends here, but he was like, we are taking the power away from Washington, D.C. elite and giving it back to you, the people. I see this 100% as a fractal, as a matching pattern on a much smaller level, on the human level, to what's
Mhm,
happening on the divine level with the
yeah.
story of the Torah from the Garden of Eden and all this.
Mhm,
Everything, history happens in circles or spirals. And this whole idea that it happened and then it had to filter down. Like we said before, it had to get to the people. The people had to see it. There was a few people saw it. Most people didn't see it. It says that King David, his tribe accepted him as the king, but it took 7 years before the other 7 years before the other tribes accepted him, before everybody accepted him. And it's the same. We see the same. Those of us who have been around for a while in this redemption conversation see that there's like a few people saw something, and the Rebbe was like on, all yes, yes, go, go, go. And people are like, the
mhm.
Rebbe's just being polite to you. He really doesn't want you to do that. It's like every possible argument. I mean, at least CNN wasn't coming out and accusing him of like Russia or whatever. But still, it seems like the same pattern, that it comes through a certain hierarchy, through a certain structure that has a cosmic amount of power. There's no question that even human kings and rulers who command armies have a cosmic amount of power. They're appointed by God. God works through them. And likewise Melech HaMashiach on a different level, the Messianic king. But we see that it's all like that same pattern of the light comes in, it comes in through a structure, like a thought comes to your brain, it goes through the system, through your nervous system, into yourself, and then everything has to agree and feel it and see it and make room for each other. Like you're talking about the side-by-side leadership.
Yeah,
Everything in the body has to agree that it needs everything else in the body, and we
yeah,
communicate and we support each other and we all grow together and we're better together, like that
yeah.
sort of thing. I think that's what's
So we're
happening.
adjusting to this. We're adjusting to this right now. Hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's happening. I just think it's fascinating that it helps me understand what God is doing when I look at what Mr. T and the White Hats are doing. It really helps me understand, like, why is it taking so long? What are they trying to avoid? What would have had to happen for it to come fast? Why aren't people awake? What am I doing about that? Like all of
Hmm.
those kinds of questions.
Hmm. 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 Yeah.
I just did
We
one of
said
my, I just
we
did
said
one of
that
my,
we would talk a little bit about how to go beyond.
yes. Thank you for remembering that. Yeah, let's do that before we leave.
So for it really begins with thinking that you can and envisioning it.
First of
Envisioning.
all, what do you mean by going beyond? Can you give an example so it's very grounded for people?
So we're talking about stepping into your godly self, right? So that means that whenever you get faced, anybody get faced with any situation, no matter how big or small, and it triggers you in some kind of a way that makes you want to hold back or resist your reality. So the first thing you want to do is tune into the fact that that's what's happening, right? It's all about awareness, right? G.I. Joe, knowing is half the battle, right?
And
So you just
accepting,
become
knowing
aware,
and self-acceptance, not to try to suppress or beat yourself up
right?
or hate on what's, yeah,
And
to
then
align with it.
and then exactly accept it with the right perspective. Like this is what's happening. This is what I'm facing right now. And then you always want to bring in the godly consciousness around it. So stepping out of the smaller perspective of what you're looking at to say something bigger is going on here. What's really happening for me? I'm being triggered in this kind of a way. I'm really interested in, and then whatever you're really interested in, right? How if you really are, you don't like whatever you're really interested in being, you're really interested in being at peace, you're really interested in feeling okay, right? So you decide consciously, because it's your decision. I'm letting this go right now. I'm choosing not to feel this way. We are not victims of our emotions by any means. We get triggered all the time, 100%. But then in that moment is your free choice of now what am I going to do with it? And so the first thing you do is you say, I choose, and you activate it through your mouth because you have creative power in your words. I choose to be in a higher state of consciousness with this.
Mm.
And while you are directing where you really want to be going, I choose to let this go and feel it in your body. Feel the energy in your body. Zone into where you're experiencing it. Usually it'll be somewhere down the core,
Yeah.
right? Tune into it. Feel it as an energy. Stop allowing the mental processes to be played out. Oh, but he said this and she said that and this happened and can you believe that? Like let go of all of that. Feel it as an energy and then decide to let it lift out of you. And
Yeah.
stay with it in that place. If you get out of here, because this is the imprisonment place, right? Getting out of Egypt is getting out of these negative thought processes that we get pulled into. And so you see it for what it is and you make the conscious decision to let it go. And then you feel the energy and you in your body, because that's one way to separate from
The
the
body
mental
is the great
chaos.
processor. The body is the supernatural processor.
Yeah. Yeah. And we process energy here physically in the here and now. And then you let it go. And then when you let it go, believe that it's actually going. Don't go turn around searching for it. Just let it go. And then go into the what you want. Go into what you want. So envision what it is you want to have and feel that experience inside of you. And believe that that's your true identity and that's who you really are. Embrace that. And anything that comes up in you that tells you that you're not, release that too.
You want to know something really funny? This is exactly what I taught in class last night.
Oh, really?
Just about exactly, almost word for word. It's
Oh,
the call of the hour. It's the call of the hour. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it can be transformed. And the Rebbe said that the apparent difference between spiritual and physical represents a very immature state of human consciousness, human maturation that is moving away. So our thoughts our thoughts have more powerful energy. Our body is more malleable. The physical world is more malleable because it's energetic and we're connecting to that. So when we see something and feel it energetically, we're actually creating physicality. Like for real, it's quite amazing. It's
like
quite
actually,
amazing. That was
yeah.
beautifully explained, by
We're
the way.
Thank you. Likewise. That like we're creators. That's what we are. We're created to create. That's what we're here
Created to
for.
create.
Yeah.
The Shoshana's gefilte fish is ready. I want some, Shoshana, but she's in Australia. I don't know. It's a little far. Okay, yeah. So I guess there are other questions, but I don't know how long we want to keep everybody the day before Pesach. But I do want to answer one thing from Aliza, which is if it's happening, does that mean we're supposed to sit back and just watch the show? And no, I think that's a no vote. That's a unanimous no vote. No, we're here. Part of what's happening is our own activation. That's part of what's actually happening in real time. We are living art. We are living, conscious actors in this play. And yes, there's a script, but the script includes our own awakening and our own proactive taking our role. What kind of difference can you make? Like, this is what Yochi's been talking about the whole time. What kind of difference can you make in your world right now? What kind of difference could you make when we close off this live and you go back to your family, or you're cleaning for Passover, or your work, or whatever it is that you do, your TV, your news? What kind of difference can you make in any area of your life? What kind of difference can you make when you choose the next thing that you're going to eat, or when you choose the next thing you're going to feed your mind with, or the next words that you're going to put into the universe, or the next request that you're going to make with God, or the next way that you're going to actually visualize energy? Because we just said that creates physical reality, co-creates. So just being part of knowing that there's an energy that's been poured on us, bombarded into us through the dark side as part of this. God created the world in a state of spiritual war. There was a snake in the garden. It didn't get there on its own. We've been transforming that snake energy bit by bit, revealing the light, revealing the gematria of the snake of Nachash is Mashiach, is Redeemer, but it's got the vessels. We're creating new vessels. So I think that being passive is the worst thing to do, but being sucked in to anyone else's narrative is even worse. Actually, that's even worse, because then your consciousness is co-creating what you don't want. So understanding God's narrative, understanding who your tribe is, how to connect to your tribe. I'm always advocating learning more Torah and mystical Torah. No matter who you are, the Torah is for every human being without any doubt, especially the mystical Torah is so needed now. The prophecies tell us where we are, what we're meant to do, what corrections we're meant to make, what the grand vision is. Then what role can you play? What matters to you? What difference do you want to see in every detailed area of life? And even if you're by yourself in your room, like, how can you get present and see the beauty and feel gratitude? Even that brings this.
Envision it and pray for it and go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I really think we're doing this. It's happening.
And
It's amazing.
the energy of this month is really this enormous push for the miraculous, right? So you're even more supported in doing that in this time period. And then the energy that comes in on Seder night, right, on Wednesday night, is the
Wednesday and
energy that,
Thursday, and outside of Israel, but we just have Wednesday to pack it in.
right, exactly. You get a double shot at that, and is one of the highest level of consciousness. It's an enormous gift. Like, the second you sit down for the Seder, you just get crowned. You just get crowned with this extremely high consciousness of understanding. So whoever you are, Jewish, not Jewish, this energy is coming into the world. Use the evening to explore higher consciousness and to bring it into your reality and to embrace it into who you are, to embrace it into your identity, to see yourself that way, to shed all the things that you're leaving behind so that you can really exit your personal Egypt and step into your true redemptive self, right? Because this is our opportunity right now.
Yeah, it's very compelling what you're saying, to step into the Seder and actually, more than ever in history, by far, we are going out of Egypt now. So to get that feeling of lean when we drink the wine and eat the matzah, because we're not running anywhere.
Right.
And knowing that God is leading us with the pillar of fire and the cloud, and that we're here together. And yeah, it will be biblical, and surprises are coming. And it would be really cool if each one of us could also be a surprise. Let's keep surprising ourselves and each other.
We gotta be.
All right. Thank you. Thanks everybody for being here. Please click subscribe if you're not subscribed to my YouTube. Join the Telegram group, t.me/Shifra Hendry. Hit notifications, share with your friends. And Yocheved Godsi, do you want people to know how to get in touch with you, or not really yet?
So my husband and I have a website, succatshalom.com, SUCCATSHALOM.com.
Slower.
I can put it in the chat underneath.
Yeah, put it in the chat.
Yeah, succatshalom.com. And we are giving different workshops ongoingly. And our most recent ones is circulating around this book by Yoel Twershman that's just come out. So on how to live a life that's happy and healthy.
Does he talk about choosing life in that book and how not to die, or he doesn't get that far?
Yeah, he does. He talks about choosing life. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If we choose life deep enough, we may just keep it because that's the times that we're in.
And
Work in
thrive in it.
progress.
Yeah.
What?
And thrive in it.
And thrive in it. Yeah, and thrive in it. And thrive in it and help others thrive and then be helped in return and not like transactional, but just because we literally are all cells in this cosmic body and each one is so needed,
Yeah.
so essential.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. It's been awesome.
Yes. Yes.
Been on a
Thank you
lot
so
longer
much.
than I planned to, but it's
Okay.
interesting,
Many
right?
blessings for everybody. A happy Passover, Chag Sameach.
So,
Lots of love.
okay,
Okay.
okay.